Hello, my name is Renjun. I'm glad to have the opportunity to give you a lecture. Today's lecture is about the relationship between China and the United Nations. Today's lecture consists of the following parts. Firstly, history of China's accession to the United Nations. Second, peacekeeping operations between China and the United Nations. Thirdly, sustainable development between China and the United Nations. Fourth, China's United Nations diplomacy. Fifth, United Nations 75th anniversary. On January 1st, 1942, representatives of 26 countries, including the United States, Soviet Union, and China, signed the Declaration by the United Nations in Washington. On October 30th, 1943, China, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union jointly signed the Declaration on Universal Security in Moscow, declaring the establishment of a universal international organization after the war. On April 25, 1945, the Constitutional Conference of the United Nations Charter was held grandly in San Francisco. The central topic of the conference was to formulate the Charter of the United Nations and formally establish the United Nations. On October 24, 1945, the Charter of United Nations entered into force, designating October 24th as United Nations Day each year to commemorate the founding of the United Nations. This photo shows that China sent a delegation, including Qiao Guanhua and Huang Hua, to the 16th session of the United Nations General Assembly. The theme of his laughter has become a historical classic. After returning to the United Nations in October 25, 1971, China initially joined the General Assembly and the Security Council. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, with the implementation of the reform and open up policy and the adjustment of foreign policy, China has taken more initiative in United Nations affairs, gradually deepening its policies and taking actions. As a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, China takes special responsibility for world peace and security. After development in the 1970s, the Blue Helmets have become peacekeepers, helping countries suffering from conflicts to create conditions for lasting peace. With China's reform and open up, China took an active part in international affairs and supported the activities in maintaining world peace and promoting international cooperation. After 2000, personnel and funds were increased, and the types of personnel sent were gradually transferred from engineers and medical support personnel to combat forces. For nearly 30 years, China has participated in peacekeeping and made great contributions to world peace. China has also been widely recognized and praised by the international community. In September 2015, President Xi attended a series of summits commemorating the 70th anniversary of the United Nations. He delivered a speech entitled "China Comes for Peace." Since 2000, the work of United Nations has mainly focused on the implementation of the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs. and the promotion of Sustainable Development Goals, SDG. In September 2000, the Millennium Declaration was adopted at the United Nations Millennium Summit, which identified 8 tasks facing human society in the 21st century. In 2001, the United Nations Secretary-General issued 8 development goals, 18 quantifiable and time-effective goals, and 48 indicators, collectively known as Millennium Development Goals. In September 2015, the 70th Development Summit of the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Transforming Our World 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which set out 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 specific goals. Sustainable development is at the core of the 2030 Agenda for Development and marks a transformation in the concept of global development governance. Next, we will discuss China's achievements in implementing Millennium Development Goals. Firstly, China has made great achievements in eradicating poverty and hunger. Secondly, China's 9 years compulsory education is universal. Employment is growing steadily, and gender equality in education and employment has been basically achieved. Thirdly, China's medical and health service system has been continuously improved. Child and maternal mortality has been significantly reduced, and positive progress has been made in curbing the spread of AIDS, tuberculosis, and other infectious diseases. Chinese government clearly privatizes people's livelihood, maintains a dynamic balance between the market and the government, promotes the transformation and upgrading of development with a scientific outlook on development, vigorously integrates the strength of development stakeholders, and makes practical use of international aid. Next, we will discuss China's United Nations diplomacy. UN diplomacy is part of China's overall diplomacy and the core of China's multilateral diplomacy. China's cooperation with the United Nations in building a new type of relations and a community with shared future for mankind will become the theme of China's United Nations diplomacy in the new era. As the largest developing country, China actively defends the interests of developing countries. China's United Nations diplomacy has undergone a change from limited participation to full integration, and from emphasizing only national interests to balancing national interests and international responsibilities. China adheres to the principles and is also flexible and pragmatic, and takes concrete steps to address and resolve various global issues. To build a community of a shared future for mankind and achieve win-win shared benefits is China's resolution to the world peace, development, and civilization. It is also the goal of and value of the United Nations. A new type of international relations calls for win-win cooperation and opposes zero-sum game. China upholds multilateralism and opposes unilateralism. China and the United Nations have worked together to build a community with a shared future for mankind. In January 2017, President Xi delivered a speech entitled "Building a Community with a Shared Future for Mankind at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, in which he elaborated on the concept of a community with a shared future for mankind. There is also huge space and potential for cooperation between China and the United Nations in building a community of shared future in cyberspace and other areas. In 2020, the COVID-19 epidemic is ravaging the world on the occasion of great changes, unprecedented in a century. We mark the 75th anniversary of United Nations. On September 21st, 2020, President Xi delivered an important speech at the summit commemorating the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. He said that, what kind of United Nation does the world need? Justice, the rule of law, cooperation, action-focused. There are so many problems in the world. Global challenges are on the rise, and they can be only solved through dialogue and cooperation. International affairs are handled through consultations, and it has become a broad consensus of the international community to work together in times of difficulty. No country has the right to decide the international affairs, dictate the destiny of other countries, or monopolize its development advantage. It can no longer go its own way in the world by seeking hegemony and by bullying. Now, let's do a quiz to refresh what we have learned. Okay, let's look at the answer. Is your answer correct? That's all for today. Thank you.